So as an organization. So now on this regard, I will try to talk a little bit more about these three focus areas as part of the highlight of the implementation on the current strategic plan. First of all, technology and innovation. And I hope I'm not duplicating some of the information that Joel already shared. I hope this is complementary. So on the first part, we see technology, of course, as an enabler for customs to be better, to be efficient, to fulfill our responsibilities and tasks. And we see technology, of course, evolving with new tools and new technologies arising, and the so-called disruptive technologies that can alter the way that trade functions and the way, of course, that customs operate. So we're following up very closely on disruptive technologies trends and how we can adapt these trends and these new technologies to the way customs are operating. So we have reports on potential uses, for instance, for drones, of course, Internet of Things, virtual reality. So we have, for instance, drones. We see ports like Rotterdam already operating with some drones on security aspects of the perimeter. We see customs administrations already using Internet of Things in order to track merchandises or to allow to calculate the time that you spent to cross a certain port of entry or not. We see customs administrations implementing virtual reality, especially by training, and this is something that WCO is doing already. We installed virtual reality equipment in our 28 regional training centers. And we're developing programs for customs officers to go and train in the virtual reality component, to be in an environment in which you simulate you are in a position in which you need to seize certain merchandise, how you need to inspect luggage or inspect a container, and so on. Biometrics, of course, is something that's been around for some time. It's something that it's also could be used in customs operations. 3D printing has become something in which we need to focus our efforts with the flow of cross-border operations on 3D printing. This is something in which we need to cooperate with other agencies that need to follow up on the collection of revenue, for instance, and of course also to follow up on certain security aspects that need to be considered. Blockchain, we already see some programs on blockchain in certain countries with certain developers, and that gives more predictability and security to the supply chains, and of course the use of big data, AI and ML, which I'm sure Joel made a lot of explication around and on what WCO is doing and other members. We of course promote the program of digital customs. And within our fostering cooperation of customs, we organized every year our technology conference. Last year, it was in Vietnam, and it was a huge event in which many customs administrations come and present their best practices, what they're doing with technologies, how they're utilizing technologies, what have been the challenges in implementing technology solutions. But we also invite main providers to come and present what they are developing and researching, so that customs start knowing what is coming as well from business. And therefore, every year we organize this event, this conference, which attracts a lot of attention. This year it will be in Brazil, in Rio, by the way, so it's a nice place, and it will be in November. The data strategy. Data, of course, is core to our strategy of technology and innovation. For us, we see data as the new oil or the new gold. We launched our data hub during the 2022 technology conference as well in the Netherlands. And we launched our working group on data and statistics, which is in charge of leading and coordinating the efforts on implementing our data strategy, which again, I'm sure Joel was much more explicit in presenting to you a few minutes ago. Of course, our main aspect at this point, or our main aim at this point, is to start agreeing in what should be the data set that we need for statistical purposes, to harmonize the way that we collect information and the way that we produce statistics. We have legal aspects to overcome. We can see already in the world at least 3 main ways of using and managing data. We see, for instance, in the Americas, how data is much more focused into private business use of business-oriented use of data. We see in Europe is very much personal protection oriented. The data cannot be used without considering a lot of personal protection aspects. And then we see in Asia how it is data is used more by government, so it's more government-oriented data. So again, trying to agree on how we're going to use data, what type of data we're going to collect, and then trying to get into the final point, which would be sharing and or exchanging data, is a long way, but we're working on that. And we decided that as part of the strategy that we are implementing, our first step should be to focus on aggregated data, on statistics, and then gradually we can go into more specific data, operational data for exchange at some point. But this is still something that, as you might imagine, requires a lot of not only legal discussions, technical discussions, but also a lot of political will and political aspects that need to be considered within the discussions that we're having on this important matter. Something to highlight, of course, in following up in our work of technology and innovation, is the challenges, the obstacles that members, customs administrations face in implementing new solutions. We, throughout our study of implementation of technology in trade, we see, for instance, that members consider the lack of expertise within their customs administrations as the main obstacle to implementing new solutions on the one hand. Then we see, of course, costs, the lack of good practices. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel in every case, and customs administrations are waiting also to see how other experiences go. If they're going to do an investment, they want to diminish the risk as much as possible. The existence of legacy systems is always a challenge to overcome as well. The lack of traction on the use by others, so something in which WCO can also foster more cooperation and try to harmonize the way that systems and technology can operate. Of course, at the level of government, sometimes there is not a vision or a strategy, and therefore customs as a single entity within a broader aspect of a government is left alone, and it's difficult to implement a technology path without a global view or vision. And of course, the legal issues that always need to be overcome. WCO particularly will focus or can focus in aspects such as lack of expertise through capacity building, lack of good practices by building compendiums of best practices. The lack of traction on the use by others is also about promoting more cooperation, and of course working on overcoming the legal issues. So we're taking actions on these main aspects in the coming years for members to be able to implement better the digitalization of their procedures and start focusing more on data management and particularly in data sharing. Yes, David, please.
A bit of a technical question. If as your standardization of data rules apply and they get adopted globally, do you foresee that data management being a centralized body such as yourselves, WCO, or would it be more of a decentralized approach?
That's a very good question, and that's part of the discussions that we're having. Well, there are many members that see WCO as a data hub
Hmm.
and having WCO centralizing and managing data. There are many challenges into that as well. So there is no agreement, there is no consensus so far. I would be unable to tell you what's going to happen at this point. What I see where I see a bit of light moving forwards is on the aspect of federated data,
Yes.
in which maybe we can work through a mechanism in which we can assure the confidentiality of data, and just sharing the intelligence that comes out of it. But again, you might imagine there's a lot of political sensitivity around that, because at the end you need a provider,
Yes.
and the provider, if you take one from China, one from the US, one from other countries, there will always be sensitivities. So this is something that we need to overcome.
Or where are those servers geographically located? That also has political implications and legal ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there is no easy answer and not clear answer yet to that question, unfortunately.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thanks. So at the end, what we want to achieve in this technology and innovation focus area is to reduce the gap between customs administrations on their capabilities to implement technology, digital solutions, and the gap that they have in their capabilities to use the data that they collect. Customs collect a lot of data. They can use a lot of data, but we need to digitize our procedures in order to collect it properly. And then being able to use it, we need to develop the skills, the expertise within customs, of course. So this is something as well that keeps us quite busy. How we're doing that is by implementing the data strategy, by digitizing customs more and more, and sharing best practices. And of course, at some point, what we want is to enhance the sharing of data. So this was on technology and innovation. Our second big focus area is around green customs. As you all know, the protection of our planet, of the environment, is something that concerns not only the new generations, which are very much advocated on that, but it's also a responsibility for all of us to work and to change the trend in which the world is going in many aspects. And customs, while we are not the only single agency focusing on this, and maybe we are just a little part that can help in these global goals of sustainability, but we have to do our part, and that's what we're seeing at this point. So after having a discussion with our members, focusing on what we could do to align our efforts on green customs, as we call this portfolio, we came up with an action plan on green customs. And this action plan is basically divided into three big aspects, which with the specific actions in each one of them. The first one is being, and this means how customs administrations can be green. And of course, we go to the traditional aspects of less use of paper, less use of electricity, trying to move from old vehicles to electric vehicles, for instance. So this is how we can reduce the footprint from customs administrations themselves. The second one is doing, and this means how we can impact the supply chains through policies in which we can identify goods that are beneficial or friendly to our environment, and that can be, of course, facilitated in their flow of trade. But we can also, we should also be able to identify those goods that are harming our environment, and we should be able to seize them, to stop them, and to verify their legal transit. This comes again with several aspects and challenges because it is difficult to agree which goods or which merchandises are good or not that good for the planet, because there are also a lot of economic interests behind this decision. And let me tell you an example. For instance, when COVID appeared in the world, we went and we met with the World Health Organization, and we came together with a list of essential goods of what needed to be facilitated during COVID. Customs did not stop working, of course. We needed to facilitate trade, and we needed to facilitate those essential goods to come from one place to the other to mitigate the impact of COVID. So antibacterial gel, masks, later in the stage, of course, vaccines and so on. But there was a clear criteria to select those goods. And everyone agreed that these goods need to be facilitated in their flow from one country to another. So we published this list, and this is how we managed to facilitate the flow of essential goods during COVID. We want to do more or less the same with the green aspect of the doing part of the action plan. However, we don't have a World Health Organization that helps us identify exactly, or there is no consensus in the world exactly to identify which goods are harming or not harming the world, because at the end, behind these goods, there is always an economic interest, a national interest, and again, a lot of political sensitivity. So we are working on that as well, in how to identify this list, and we're doing it through greening our harmonized system. And there is an initiative to explore and study how we can use better our harmonized system in classifying goods that are friendly or not to the environment. And before giving the floor to Paola, just to finish the part of the action plan, innovating is basically thinking out of the box a little bit, trying to go into those complicated areas of how we can help the environment. For instance, circular economy and recycling. How do you identify, how do you classify a good that is being reused or not, if it's going to be disposed or not, if it's going to go through another process. And this is where we also need to start working a lot, for instance, among other aspects of the innovating strategy that we're following. But please, Paola, I see your hand is raised.
Thanks for giving me the floor. Thanks for the presentation. If I may share a question/comment. I was a custom officer in Italy in March 2020, when the COVID emergency became suddenly real. Okay. And well, I remember a lot of confusion in the following months just to identify the precise rules for the exemption for the sanitary goods. And I think that, I mean, what you say is grammatically true. Maybe the Health Organization didn't help so much in identify the correct features of the essential goods and of the sanitary goods. For example, gloves, which gloves for sanitary use and which gloves for, how can I say, supermarket use, or face masks. And this, in the following months, created a lot of problems during custom clearance for custom officer who needed to know if they had to apply exemptions, and also for ex post controls. And we still deal with the consequences of that. And so probably better coordination should have been good.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Paola. No, absolutely. And I think improving communication is something that is also something in which we are weak usually in customs. We don't communicate that effectively, and what we did in this part as part of maybe complementing your comment and the experience that you had when we published this list. Of course, it was very much welcome by customs administrations that were following up on the list and identifying which goods should be facilitated, how they should classify it. We published the classification codes from the harmonized system also for business to do it quickly and for customs administrations to verify. So it was very, very much welcome. But as we know, when we provide facilitation measures, what happened is that organized crime also try to benefit from those facilitation measures. And then we started seeing that a lot of masks, gloves, antibacterial gel that were not fulfilling the minimum requirements, technical requirements that were expected, were also being facilitated. And therefore, as an answer to that, then we had to come to the control side as well and do a global operation that we named Stop Operation, in which we followed up on this trend of illicit trades and underperforming or underqualified goods that were being exchanged also throughout the pandemic, and the organized crime tried to benefit from this as well. So there's always this part of or these difficulties for customs officers at the ports of entry to identify how to treat and how to verify that these goods are the ones that should be facilitated or not. I understand completely that part. Then came for vaccines, and you had fake vaccines also being trying to be flowing from one country to the other. So we had to bring the vaccine producers for constant meetings and training for customs administration so that we would be able to identify those vaccines as well. It was a it was a very good experience, but thanks for sharing because it's true. It was very complicated. Thanks.
Mr. Trevino, we have 2 questions in the chat and we have 2 raised hands now. We have, in order, we have Avani, who's Nisankan, who's raising a question. We have Gustavo Scarpetta, who also has a question. And then we have Priti and David, who also have questions. Lots of questions. Obviously, it's so interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manuel, and thank you for highlighting the chat because I was not following those ones right now. So I'll take one from the chat and then I come back to Priti. That's fine. So the chat, Avani, I have a small question. Is WCO look over the strategic plans of member countries when they are developing their strategic plan every 3 years? And no, we don't do this. We don't follow up on the 186 strategic plans. For us, it should be the other way around. The countries should align their national strategies to the global strategy of the WCO. So, and we don't have the capabilities or the resources to ensure their alignment or the implementation of their own domestic plans. So that's a different process. But within the process of defining the WCO strategic plan, we do consultations and we invite members to do their input and their feedback so that they can reflect also their national priorities somehow.
So can I elaborate that one? Because as I understood, the WCO strategic plan goes from now it's ending 2024, it's going to start from 2025 for up to 3 years. Even in my country, we also try to merge and absorb our local priorities as well as the strategic plan aspects of the WCO and get some kind of alignment there. But the thing is our strategic plan goes from 2024 to 2029, where in the middle, the strategic plan of the WCO changes. So if it's some kind of a drastic change, our strategic plan alignment for the previous strategic plan for the WCO will be a little bit confusing. So that's what I was concerning. I completely understand that it is so difficult for WCO itself to study all 189, like 86 or something, like some about 180 countries. But still, I was just wondering whether just they do some kind of a brief or maybe something like that. Because as I observe, like if there is going to be a significant change in WCO strategic plan, we have just started our strategic plan the year, like 5 years. So we are going to face some kind of difficulties. That's what I was just want to understand. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. No, of course, I mean, as organization, and you know it probably, we cannot enforce each custom administration to follow up on our own strategic plan. At the end, each country, each member state has their own right and responsibility to draw up on their own strategic plan. But we invite our members to follow up on what we do at our strategic planning cycle. And it is because of members' decisions that we do the 3 years time frame, because of how fast things evolve. Just last year, I proposed that the new strategic plan should run for 5 years, but it was not approved by members. Members insisted that we should keep it at 3 years, so we're going to keep it at 3 years. And therefore, if this is the decision from members, what we would expect from members is to then align to maybe this 3-year time frame as well. But we cannot enforce it, and at the end, it's a national decision. But I understand the challenge that you mentioned. But in this case, I think it's at the end, it's the decision of each customs administration how much they align to our global strategy. In any case, the strategy follows a global perspective, and we try to move according to our implementation plans. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Preeti, tell me.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving this opportunity. So this topic has become actually interesting, and green customs is one of the most important aspects that we are dealing in. There is one strategy that I see is the creating a negative list. Negative list is something that as a member country, we all endorse not to export or import those of this stuff or across the border. And one of the immediate thing that I see is the municipal waste across the border. With my own experience in one of the biggest port of India, that's Nhava Sheva port, I saw that there would be containers and containers, lots so many, coming from random countries where the municipal waste has been shipped out and without any traceability of the exporter. And in fact, to that extent that the importer in the domestic countries, they are getting money for lifting these municipal waste also. To a certain extent, I believe that every country has to learn to get rid of or dispose of their municipal waste in a much more eco-friendly manner. And shipping out may not be the one wise thing to do. So can we come up, that is what I'm just suggesting, can we think of something like the negative list where we can start placing one of such goods like used tires or the municipal waste? CFC was one of the things which is ozone depleting. So with the conditions and naming the goods and taking endorsement from the member countries. So there is certain responsibility on the part of every country and just not the fly-by-night operators who are doing these. Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's a good idea. It's a good proposal. Maybe focusing on the negative stuff would be an easier way to move forward. So thanks for the proposal. We've been, for instance, and maybe this makes sense with what you're proposing. We've been working a lot, of course, on illegal plastic waste, especially in Asia Pacific. And it has had a lot of good impact, and I think it's something in which we all agree. Okay, plastic cannot move from one place to another. If either you recycle or you take care of your own garbage, And this is where we started already with plastic, but there are many other aspects. And for instance, there are things, batteries and chips that will come and that are coming or exist now, in which we need to agree how we're going to deal with this type of residual merchandises as well. So thanks for the proposal. We'll take it as well as part of our discussions, and maybe this could ease the way forward on this aspect. So thanks a lot for your comment. Yes, David.
Thank you. In fact, I would say that you can ask all of us to put in our efforts to create some paper on the, because I am really finding this is one place we all should work together. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
If we can also chip in, we will be there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, David.
David, you have to unmute.
Thank you. I recently learned about the CBAM, which is Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, that the EU is experimenting with as a innovative green customs policy to tariff goods produced in other countries when they try to enter the European Union based on the amount of carbon that was emitted in their production. One of the criticisms of this plan is that it puts too much burden on customs, because how do you know how much carbon was emitted in the creation of a product? Do you see there being hard limits to what WCO can do in terms of pushing a border in time and space, or how much responsibility you can really bear in these kinds of things?
Yeah. You're sharp today, David.
Yeah.
This is another complicated aspect, and very sensitive one, by the way. We're still figuring out how we're gonna do. I think the EU is trying to figure out how they're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And we are trying to see what are the next steps in this legislation in their own operations, and see how we can contribute in the process. Of course, there is a lot of concerns around it, and the rest of the world is following up to see how this is going to end up, and maybe other CBAMs are already being created in other parts of the world, and at this point, if this is the pattern that many economies choose to follow, I think WCO would need to try to harmonize the way they consider these CBAM programs everywhere in the world, which is not going to be easy, of course. And again, it depends on national regulations. So, but yeah, definitely the EU went into this direction, and they are a big bloc, a big powerful economic bloc. So they might set the standard to move into that one. I still don't know how many countries will follow, but if this happens, I think the role of WCO will be to try to harmonize the way that CBAMs are operated everywhere in the world. At least this would be our first step.
Do you think your work in data standardization and AI could potentially solve that problem?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I believe that the way to solve this and other problems, not only for instance to identify the footprint and the carbon emissions, but we can talk about other problems, the same level of sensitivity around, which is, for instance, children labor or criminal infiltration into supply chains. The only way to really tackle and mitigate these aspects that we're facing, these challenges that we're facing, is through a better visibility of supply chains. And how do we achieve visibility? Through data. And therefore we need to focus in collecting data and analyzing the data. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And lastly, a question from Gustavo in the chat, referring to a previous slide I was talking about, and the challenges on why customs administrations cannot implement some of the digital solutions. And one of the challenges was the lack of good practices. And what they refer to this, Gustavo, is basically that there are a lot of isolated efforts going around the world, and there is little information being shared So what we're trying to do at the technology conference, and now we're building our first compendium of use of technologies, is to concentrate, to consolidate these good practices into a document, and to make them visible and to make them accessible for customs administrations. This is what they mean when there is a lack of good practices, is because we have not done the job of consolidating and making them accessible for others to see. But we're working on that. Our first compendium on use of technologies should be out later this year, and we should follow up on some of the results on that. It would be a living document to be updated. So I hope I went through. Pretty, you still have your hand raised. You want to mention something else?
No, sorry, I'll keep it down. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Good. So continuing with the presentation. So an overview again on I was talking about an overview on the Green Customs Action Plan. So as I was saying, being, doing, innovating. So I think being is very clear. Doing has been very clear. Innovating, I was telling you about focusing on circular economy and the implications for customs administrations. We're focusing on carrying out research workshops on customs, and we're working now in preparing a document for the COP28 on how customs can work together with environmental agencies, explore key topics in partnership with academia. We need to develop more expertise, to make more research on this, and share experiences again on the impact of customs as well. And here comes the part of reducing carbon leakage. So key activities forward is on our main tools. We are working and exploring how to green the harmonized system, to ensure environmental compliance, probably through a safe framework of standards, maybe even developing an AEO focused on green customs, on green aspects. Of course, focusing on the implementation and coordination of multilateral environmental agreements, and being customs as a facilitator for the circular economy would be our holy grail at some point, and where we want to work in the coming years. Something to highlight, as I was mentioning earlier in some of the answers I provided, the Asia Pacific Plastic Waste Project. We worked together with the countries in the region, with Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, Sri Lanka, among others, to consolidate, first of all, exchange information, coordinate operations to detect illegal waste, illegal traffic of plastic waste, and execute strategies and actions to tackle this risk. And we also work very closely with the Basel Convention on this aspect. So it's something, it's like a case study, a success story that we want to keep growing and expanding on our green customs portfolio. And thirdly, the focus area on governance and accountability. I won't spend much time on that because it's more of an internal arrangement on how we work within the Secretariat. But I decided to show a couple of slides just for you to have general knowledge of it, but maybe it's not that relevant for the purposes of this meeting. However, this is part of the strategic plan commitment, and it's our third focus area. So I wanted to share something. And it's basically that after 70 years, the evolution of customs, the evolution of the WCO has been happening, but not necessarily at the same speed and with the same needs that society is asking from us. Our last reorganization, structural reorganization, happened in 2005, so almost 20 years ago, and it came the time that we needed to propose a new way of operating within the organization, how to take decisions on what to do, where to focus, and what not to do, which are the toughest strategic decisions sometimes, because the limited resources that we have should make us focus on the top priorities for our members. And basically what we presented to our council a couple of weeks back in the last week of June is a structure in which we're basically now focusing into developing policy and standards, and then a direct link with the implementation and capacity development directorate. So we are taking our value chain operation of the organization into these two main aspects. And I circled within the policy and standards directorate the idea of having a dedicated department on data and technology, which will allow us to focus on some of the aspects that I highlighted on the previous part of the presentation. We definitely see the need to foster more data management, hoping to get to data exchange at some point, and of course the use of technology. So important efforts on this in the coming years is definitely coming. So with that, I finished the aspect of the strategic plan. I think there's been some questions. I would like to continue with the presentations and maybe keep this dynamic of having questions throughout the presentation instead of stopping at this point. So feel free just to raise the hand again whenever you have something to say or ask. And we'll see how we can discuss. The last part of the presentation is the environmental scan that we produced and we presented to the council session a few weeks back. And this is part of the new strategic plan that is coming. As in the strategic planning cycle, we have to present our new strategic plan for the period 25 to 2028 next year in the council. Therefore, what we needed to have as an approval in the process of the strategic planning cycle was the identification of the top trends and priorities for customs administration, so that we can work in the coming months in defining the strategic plan that will be endorsed next year. And it is a very interesting document. It's one of the documents I enjoy the most working on. So I decided to include it in this presentation. And the environmental scan is basically the document that will feed into the new strategy for next year. So basically, it helps us. The environmental scan aims to help us understand the global environment and emerging trends, emerging risks as well. It assesses the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that customs and WCO are facing. So we do this through a SWOT analysis. We validate or modify the organization's mission and vision so that it aligns with the current trends that we identified and the current works that we're going to do. We develop new goals, strategies, and then we execute and manage the strategy accordingly, and then assess and adjust the plan as an ongoing process. So this is the time in which we are in the process of between number 6 and number 1, and we need to start developing and adjusting our new strategic plan. The environmental scan, besides making SWOT analysis, follows the PESTEL methodology. So we do an analysis on emerging trends that will impact the way customs operates in the politics, in the political, in the economic, the social, the technological, and the law and the environmental aspects. This is the structure that we follow in the document. And just a few highlights, because it's a big document, a lot of research that we do on this, but some of the highlights are the following. So on the political aspect, we see, of course, a lot of geopolitics increasingly affecting customs administrations. We see that globalization of crisis, meaning that domestic crises become international by participating, and this definition is that we have more than one state participating in a conflict. And if we see the graphic that is shown here, we can see how this has increased throughout the years, and that now more and more internationalized civil conflicts are occurring. And this, of course, brings a lot of geopolitical aspects for customs operations that are working in fragmented geopolitical environments. It increases the demand for supply chain resilience and security. Of course, customs are working on borders that are very fragile, borders that are being attacked sometimes by military actions in many parts of the world. So this environment for customs to work is very complicated. And then throughout these social and geopolitical conflicts and after these conflicts, there is always the aspect of humanitarian actions for reconstruction and relief, which is also something that puts pressure on customs. And that it's difficult to operate at some point because it comes again the part of how much you let the flow of things go on. This is just an aspect on the political part. Then the economic side of the analysis, we see trends of financial stability. Inflation is being controlled in most of the countries, but this is still a priority for many governments. So governments are still focusing after COVID, focusing a lot in controlling the inflation levels. So this brings budgetary pressure to customs, but it also comes with pressure on the economic development of each national economy. Regardless of this, what we see is the continued growth of e-commerce, which is changing the way that trade is happening. More and more e-commerce is growing, double-digit growth, even before COVID, of course, and after COVID, it's been exponential. After the COVID crisis and then the crisis that happened in the Suez Channel and so on, we see nearshoring and friendshoring happening more and more. So a more regional focus of trade is happening and how supply chains are getting shorter. So this could signify the slowdown of globalization somehow. We see that this will bring more regional hubs, and this means that we maybe need to focus on and customize our efforts in a regional way instead of a global way, and then trying to make all these regional efforts align and make sense somehow. Of course, this what implies is that customs need to adopt faster and better the technology for a smoother cross-border. Particularly, we need to define and to take lessons learned from our current framework of standards for e-commerce and to update them and see what we can improve on the way e-commerce is operating. Huge demand is coming on that, and we need technology to operate efficiently. And of course, the need to, as we've been saying, to collect and exchange data is something that comes more relevant every time. On the social aspect, we see many trends occurring as well. For instance, on the one hand, we recognize that trade is a factor for inclusivity, and it not only when we talk about minorities or gender, but we also talk about inclusivity of small and medium enterprises, where we see that trade brings them more opportunities. So there is a challenge on the side of customs on how to foster more inclusion and how to facilitate the inclusion of small and medium enterprises into trade on the one hand. And on the other hand, we also want to incentivize and foster the inclusion of women into customs. Especially in certain regions, we see more and more needs for this aspect to become a reality. And therefore we take this as part of something that we need to deal with our coming strategic plan. On the technology side, well, we've talked a little bit about this. Digital innovations are used by traders, but what we haven't discussed that much is that these are also used by criminals, as always. And therefore, we see a highlight on this analysis on how cybercrime is increasing, and the cost and the resources that business and governments are spending and allocating to avoid cybercrime is increasing. Therefore, customs cannot lag behind. If we digitize, the more we digitize our operations, the more we will be exposed also to this cybercrime, and therefore we need to grow and to adopt technologies, but we need to consider to adopt and invest in ways of protecting our systems and especially the data that we collect. The only way that we will achieve our goal of exchange of data and that we will achieve the goal of business sharing their data to customs will be by increasing the trust they have on us, and we will have their trust if we have the necessary measures to protect their information as well. So this is something in which we also need to focus quite a bit in the coming years. On the aspect of the legal aspect, well, of course, we see illicit trade evolving still. We have, according to some of our statistics, how cigarettes and other tobacco products are still the predominant illegal merchandise that we are seizing in terms of numbers of seizures. But we see there are increases in some of other harmful products, such as all these opioids and synthetic drugs, amphetamine, methamphetamine, and then we have, of course, cocaine and others. And then, of course, the illegal flow of arms, which are also a big challenge for customs, because usually they come separated in parts, not assembled. So it's difficult to identify them, even with non-intrusive technology sometimes. So this is something in which we still need to work. And again, how do we work on this or how we improve is by enhancing cooperation, international cooperation. And how do we do this? Well, by exchanging data. So again, we come back to data on this aspect. And finally, the environmental aspect of the analysis. Basically, the conclusion here is we haven't done enough. We need to do more. We need to work on being better, for instance, on combating the illegal flow of species that are under the risk of extinction. We still have a lot of species classified as potentially being extincted. And of course, the illegal trade also of deforestation that is being used and traded illegally, and something that customs need to focus on as well in the coming years. So on this regard, well, we will need to develop within our new strategic plan some solutions, proposals for WCO to provide guidance, leadership to our customs administrations, manage uncertainty for customs. We have to work under this geopolitical unstable context. We cannot change that, and customs should keep away from politicizing and try to keep our focus on technical matters and on cooperation. It's a challenge, but we're trying to do that. And so far, we've been successful. So we want to keep it that way. And we need to focus again on not only on the technical aspects of data, of green customs, of illicit trade, e-commerce, but we also need to develop our skills in telling a good success story of customs and WCO. Society does not understand in many cases why customs exists. We are seen as an obstacle for many people that only knows about customs when they are inspected in an airport, and they don't understand that the role of customs is strategically very important for the protection of society, for economic development, and also, of course, for the sustainability of governments through fair revenue collection. But this is something that we as WCO, together with our members, need to start communicating better. We need to upgrade our skills on that, and really this will also open opportunities for customs at the political level within their own national administrations by making them strategic advisors to their leaders. In many cases, we face the complication that customs are not taken into account when national strategies are being developed in trade facilitation or in combating certain illicit operations. And sometimes the operation just comes to customs for them to execute without even knowing how this strategy was developed. And this happens because governments, presidents, ministers do not have the awareness of the importance that customs play for national strategies, for national goals. And this is something in which also as WCO, we want to focus in the coming years, making customs more visible and making customs a strategic policy advisor to the top leaders of national decision makers. So with this, I end my slides, the presentation I had prepared for you. And again, if there are additional questions, I'm happy to try to take on board some of them, or comments, of course, I'm happy to hear them. So thank you very much.
David, take the floor.
Ricardo, if I understand correctly, the WTO and the WCO both have origins in GATT, and that so in current modern day, what kind of relationship does the WTO and the WCO have? How do they work together?
We work together very fluently. We share committees, for instance, on origin and valuation for the topic of aspects. They follow up and they participate in some of our meetings, like the council and of course the harmonized system committee. They are focusing more on trade policy, of course, and we focus more on the execution from the customs side. So we cooperate a lot together. I personally travel to Geneva very often, and they come to Brussels as well very often. And we try to coordinate a lot in tasks and initiatives that we take. There is something that sometimes doesn't work that much, and it's I will share it because I feel safe in this room because we're in an academic environment. But one of the challenges that we have when we cooperate with other international organizations, and particularly WTO, is that our members are customs administrations and their members are the trade ministries.
Yes.
And sometimes they have opposing positions. Even what they tell WCO and what they tell WTO. So even one country has opposing decisions at certain levels. So what we suffer a lot is the lack of coordination at the national level. Coordination among the organizations is really running most of the time beautiful. We have very good relationship, and I know them for years as well. But the national coordination fails a lot, and sometimes the positions of the same country are contradicting one or the other. So that complicates a little bit our coordination. But it's something maybe I wanted to share. But other than that, we talk very often, and we try to coordinate our actions.
Thank you.
I see a question in the chat. Dimension. Are there customs experts in the control of non-tangible flows, fraudulent financial flows? Not yet, not as far as I know. I know there are some countries trying to build departments on tangibles, but in many cases, most of the countries are allocating these efforts, at least at this moment, more into the fiscal side of the government strategy. Customs, we're still trying to identify how we're going to operate here, how we're going to cooperate with the fiscal agencies, what will be our role, if we need to establish digital enforcement somehow. But as far as we are aware, so far we don't have these experts functioning in any custom administration. Yes, Paola, please.
Well, if I may, I just wanted to share an idea, comment about, e-commerce. For example, in my country, there is this problem of the overlapping of the rules about e-commerce and the controls in the field of VAT about goods of small value. And so this creates, an area of intersection and overlapping where it is hard to define what is the right amount of control or if any control has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I was saying e-commerce is something that is coming back to the agenda of potentially becoming a priority or a focus area in the coming strategic plan. We developed and we had endorsed our e-commerce framework of standards in 2018. So already after 5 years, I think we have some lessons that we've learned, and it's something that we need to update and upgrade in the coming years. There are a lot of national experiences out there, so we are working on a compendium of best practices. Once we have collected the best practices, then we will be in the position to try to develop new guidelines and update the guidelines on e-commerce. But there is a lot of course of contradicting positions at this point regarding the de minimis and regarding the control of these low value operations. But there is pressure as well from the side of the retailers for a level playing field, and therefore it's something that will come up in the coming years and will be part of the strategic plan for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, one question from my side also can be taken.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. So, of course, one of the aspect you considered that is safety.
Priti, we just lost you. If you want to repeat the question because we couldn't hear it.
Yeah, can I be heard? Yeah.
No,
So
right now, yes, but there was an interruption. Please repeat the question.
I understood. So there is rules of origin, and at the same time, we are looking at the safety through the food also and the health related things also. We are seeing the safety of the citizens. So do we have anything on our chart to connect it through the document like the blockchain based technology?
Priti, you interrupted again. You were interrupted again. There is a connection issue. Would you want to write the comment or the question in the chat? It would come through more easily, I think. We can't hear you right now, Priti. I'm so sorry.
Okay, sorry. It should be audible now.
Try.
Yeah. So my simple question is, are we working something on the paper-based verification like QR code or something with respect to the origin of the goods through reading of the QR code? Because inter-country document verification is always a challenge and connecting back to the country always remains difficult. So especially on the food articles where
It got lost again, pretty, but I think more or less where your question is going. Yeah, the digital certification of origin is something that we also are working on together with WTO, by the way, and it's something that is also in the pipeline. There are, again, efforts trying to harmonize the position, trying to get consensus on how this could operate among our member countries. Probably the first phase will need to go by region. But there is I think the momentum for a digital certificate of origin to be built in the coming years. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah,
I
yes,
think
that
related. Yeah.
I have to close the session, but I want to thank you, Ricardo Trevino, for coming to the Borders in Globalization Institute today. I think because of the number of questions that both Joel and you had, you realized the interest in knowing better the World Customs work and its strategies and all the activities it had. Personally, I made a couple of notes which I think echo extremely well what is going on at the Institute on custom and borders, which is two of the things that World Custom is really interested in, the data harmonization and also the greening of customs. And I want to call all of the fellows and students in class, for those of you who are taking the microcredit, taking the 3 classes, that these are ideal papers, obviously, that allow you to address both the technological aspects, both about data harmonization and technology, right? But also for the greening of custom. You've got in both areas technological aspect, but also governance aspect, which have tremendous impact on the policies of your own country, your own custom organization. But I want you to make a note, a mental note, that these are areas where you could write 2 papers and you could discuss them with our policy person or policy expert and teacher, Claude Beaupré, who's teaching tomorrow afternoon. Right? These are highly valued thought pieces, and Ricardo Trevino did actually mention that more research was needed in those areas, so please don't let it slip out of your mind. Please remember this. It is working with you, and it is working, among you that we can actually develop more knowledge, right? So it's coming in part from you, but also working in partnership with the academic world that we can do it. And obviously, the Borders in Globalization Research Lab is organizing these trainings, but also organizing the writing of those policy papers with that purpose in mind. Hence my offer to tell you all, and I've mentioned it a couple of times, I mention it in every class, to also publish the best among your papers after, the peer review process. But we have, with Claude and Ben Perrier, Claude Beaupré and Ben Perrier, we have a team that is here to help you fashion those short policy papers and move them forward. And with these comments, I just want to thank you so very much, Ricardo Trevino, for taking the time. I realize it's very late for you today, and I'm sure there have many other things and priorities on your agenda than being with us. But as you have seen in the interest and a number of questions, it's highly valued for us, and we are grateful and thankful for your time and your very interesting presentation.